Hello friends, my name is Leigh and I create videos about photography as an art and as a lifestyle. One of the ways that I am able to continue coming up with ideas and staying motivated is by going into the great outdoors. The further away from civilization, the better. When it is just me and nature, I recharge. And earlier this year, I was in desperate need of a recharge. Something to shake up my routine and my brain. So I treated myself to a few days at Ghost Ranch, an education and retreat center about 65 miles northwest of Santa Fe, New Mexico. It's a place I've wanted to visit for years, and it did not disappoint. I not only reinvigorated my sense of purpose, but I was able to capture lots of photos while I was there. So today I'm going to have a little show and tell with you. I will share with you some of my photography. I'll talk about a photo project that I came up with while I was there, and I'll talk a bit about Ghost Ranch itself. Raymond says that I am the only person he knows that could live like a hermit and actually be completely content. So the solitude of Ghost Ranch in the off-season, I was there in early March, was just my style. I was drawn there for the same reasons that a lot of other people throughout history have been drawn there. I found out about the place through my research into Georgia O'Keeffe, one of my favorite artists. She spent a great deal of time there because she felt at home, and the surroundings were inspirational for her. If you have seen any of my videos, you probably know about my love for the outdoors. I've traveled extensively in the southwestern US, but I somehow haven't ever been to Santa Fe or the surrounding areas. And while I've seen photos of it, I was still surprised by how different it was from my home state of Arizona. It's just a different desert with different materials in the dirt and different topography. There's so much sky. Ghost Ranch is set into a valley, but there is so much flat land in the valley and beyond that you can see for miles. I felt very small there in the enormity of the surroundings, and like I could choose any direction and walk for hours before running into another human. I arrived in the afternoon and pretty much just got settled into my room, and I studied the area map and planned out a couple of hikes for myself. Of course, I had my cameras with me the entire time. I brought all Nikon gear because the loan period that I had for the Z6 III and the 600mm f6.3 lens and the Z52 kit was nearly over, and I wanted to use it just a little bit more. You'll be able to see what camera and lens I was using at the bottom of the screen for each photo I share. The weather overall was so varied when I was there. The first afternoon, it was windy as a storm rolled through. But the next day started out absolutely beautiful and warm. I had booked a private tour. This one was all about Georgia O'Keeffe and how her paintings were inspired by her surroundings here. In fact, the tour guide would show me a view and then show me a painting of that view. It was wild. The tour was based on studies that were done for an exhibition, and I later purchased the exhibition book so that I could look at it even more in depth. It's so interesting to see how O'Keeffe plucked out details from the broad surroundings to focus or narrow her painting on. And it was surreal to think that I was standing where she stood, looking at some of the same mountains and even trees and bushes so many years later. Incidentally, there are all sorts of other tours available, from geology to art to paleontology. The next morning was cloudy and cool, and I was sitting outside, wandering around, a little bit looking at rocks on the ground. Have I ever mentioned that I love rocks? I do. Anyway, I ended up creating little still life arrangements and photographing them. It was this clump of dried grasses and stems that caught my eye and inspired the project. This is absolutely something I would not have thought to do if I hadn't given myself permission to just sit and to wander. I didn't have any photography goals. I didn't have my phone out. I was just enjoying the scenery. And it is that kind of headspace that allowed my brain to come up with something new like this. This is one of my favorite high desert plants, and I used the sky as a background. You might see parallels to some of O'Keeffe's work in these photos. I was certainly thinking about her large-scale flowers that were centered in the frame. I came back to the idea later in the trip, which we will get back to in a moment. That afternoon, I hiked to Chimney Rock. It's a tough hike. You gain a lot of elevation quickly, so I kept stopping to catch my breath, and I would turn around and see ever-changing views. You can see Cerro Pedernal, the mesa towards the center of the image, and other mountains in the distance. Georgia O'Keeffe considered it to be her own private mountain, but it has significance for many peoples throughout history. And then this is Chimney Rock on the right. This is one of those viewpoints where you have to put your big boy pants on to approach, because it is a pretty small piece of land jutting out with steep drop-offs. And you do have to do a little rock scrambling to get there. While I worked up the courage, I hung out a little away from that scary spot and enjoyed the views. I even captured 6 photos of this area and created this panorama image. I did finally talk myself into going out onto the ledge and captured a couple of photos, but mostly I just stared at it. Here's a photo from below when I was on the tour the day prior, but then to be up there, seeing just how many times my size that it is was wild. And so I sat enjoying the views and the sunshine until the clouds started to roll in and it started to get windy. There was a wind advisory from the Weather Service for the afternoon, so I knew I needed to scoot on out of there. I captured a couple of photos with this cool tree on my way back, but that was it. It got real windy real quick, so I was practically moving at a jog down that trail. And then my last full day at Ghost Ranch, I took this incredible hike out to Box Canyon. It was largely flat and crossed the Arroyo del Yeso back and forth several times. The hike starts out in the open, but you do end up in Box Canyon, which is shady and protected. It was so quiet and I didn't see anyone else, though I did see fresh mountain lion tracks. I had my eyes and my ears open just in case. I passed this little waterfall, which was such a treat. You know how I mentioned that I like rocks? Because of the arroyo, many different types of rocks are gathered around that area, so I stopped over and over again to pick up different stones and examine them. On the way out of the canyon, I stopped and did a few more still life photos. I just sat there on the ground. There were things that I just did see on the ground in an interesting composition, so I photographed them, but I also picked up a few items and placed them intentionally in a way that I liked, or I even stuck some broken twigs in the ground to make this tiny forest. It was a fun project to explore, and I think I will try it again. And then the next morning, I woke up to an absolute winter wonderland. It was snowing the entire way out of there. I couldn't have come up with a better exit. Overall, Ghost Ranch was a renewing experience all around. If you like being outside, I'd definitely recommend it. Everyone was so nice, the food was good, the surroundings are awe-inspiring. I plan to take Raymond back with me next time. And that's all I have today. Let me know down in the comments if you have a place where you like to recharge. I'm sure the rest of us want to know. And let me know if you have any questions too. Thank you for watching.